good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. That would be very quantum physics. Right, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And please, wherever you're watching this, even on catch up, come over to Rumble, find the full English show and subscribe to us. We need to get over 10,000 subscribers this year. And we're getting many more people looking, etc. I'm going to speak to a couple of people about Facebook being more free speech at the moment. I don't think it is, but it still hasn't let me back on there. So the question to everyone: who has seen the Joe Rogan and Rupert Lowe video? I've only watched some of it, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to watch the whole thing at the end of this show and go through it. Your channel above 97,000 now, DD. Yeah, it is. We've got 9,700. Technically, I've got 500 on the other channel, so I'm at 10,200. But it won't show 10,000 plus until we click over on this channel. It's just one of them big markers that you want to get past. We've worked hard getting this channel to where it is. Rumble is free speech. The British have tried to shut it down. There's lots of things that the British are doing in the background, which I'm not going to say what they're doing at the moment towards Rumble and towards something else. And I just want to make sure that everyone gets there. And if I was actually transmitting from United States of America, there'd be a lot less interference with our subscriber base. That's a fact, right? So everyone should understand that. Facebook has kicked me off twice. Yeah, they look like they're kicking everyone off. I'm all typed out now. We'll be watching from the shadows. Okay, not a problem. Right, let's go back and have a look at this. So I'm going to try and attempt to show you some of these elements. Let me go back to my main screen. So from what I've seen of it so far, very good interview. There's been some slight misspeaks. I'm not making a big issue out of that, right? He's in Texas. He's in a studio with Joe Rogan, possibly the largest podcast audience in the world, as far as I know, or certainly in America. Getting the message out in a big way, explaining things that needed explaining, explaining that 250,000 rape and torture gang victims are a conservative estimate, not a fixed figure. He believes it's far more than that. And certainly, he said that every time they talk about the rape and torture gang report, that people from all over the country come back to him and say, listen, you haven't mentioned us, you haven't mentioned, we've got it here as well. So it is going on all over the country and predominantly England. He also mentioned a number of other things. One is, I think maybe I should bring up the element that I want to start at and then go through them. So at 35 and 43, let's write them down on here and then I ain't got to keep looking. But we will actually talk about a few other things as well. So 35, 43, 53, 58 minutes. This is just part of what I've seen, and 103. But actually, it's probably about 103, 104. And he's talking about the Fabian Society. So anyone out there, maybe I should start with that because I think people should understand how bad they are, and I don't want to get this banned on here. So I'm going to go on to there, see if we can come up with this. Let's see if I can get across to it. Hopefully you're going to see and hear it. I won't play too much because I know what they're like. But there you go. Let me see if I can turn that up.
just getting better at being people, like pretty recently. But to throw it all out and abandon it and to think that socialism is going to fix you. Like, do you guys read anything? There's not a single example of that not turning to tyranny. And their take on it is always, it hasn't been done correctly. And that is so wild that people are still willing to swallow that. And the only thing that makes sense is they've been indoctrinated through universities to think this way, because nowhere in the real world do you think that equality of outcome ever makes any sense? Because everybody realizes somewhere along the line, when you get your first job, when you're a kid, when you're going through school, when you're playing sports, there's not equality of effort. There's never equality of effort. And there's always some people that want to put in more effort and they're put in more thought and more focus, and they get further. And, oh, well, they're fucking over all these other people. Are you sure that's everything? Because it seems like it's not. And it seems like as soon as you remove any incentive to succeed, then you don't have any of the amazing stuff that you have around you all the time. The reason why you have beautiful televisions and these success complete, just getting better.
I'm trying to find this particular part. I just had it there a second ago. Maybe it's on there. It brought it up on the screen. Let's go back to 101. There it is. So that's at 59. Sorry. So there's more that I need to show you, but
I'm crazy.
Well, everyone should look at the Fabian Society because that runs deep through the veins of labor.
That is damn crazy.
What do you think of that?
That is damn crazy. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just listening to this Fabian Society coat of arms is really a black wolf that has a sheep's body strapped on top of its back. And it's like covering its body. This is insane. That's crazy. That what a complete disdain for anybody else's intelligence. Like they're not even trying to hide it. They're just like
they're all members. The front bench are all members of the Fabian Society. So
that coat of arms.
Keir Starmer is also a member.
I need a T-shirt, Jamie. Please order it.
You want to hold anything? you want a Fabian Society T-shirt?
Yeah, just for a goof. I think it'd be hilarious.
But no, so that runs through the Labour Party. So that's all part of it. So I think the agenda has been, to your point, they're infiltrated our education system. And, I'm proud of our history. I mean, Britain stopped the slave trade. It cost us a fortune.
Right. So there are things that he said in this interview. I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm saying that if you want to tell, and again, at a later stage, which I want to show you, Joe Rogan actually says, are there no historians that are conservative that can tell the truth and come out and tell people what's really happening, right? And I'm sitting there watching it saying, a legal historian, and again, there's sections of this where Rupert, there is so much I agree with Rupert Lowe, right? We are so aligned with so much. He absolutely believes that monopolies are a bad thing. Well, if you have a monopoly in the legal profession, what do you think you get, right? There isn't any subjects of the realm, actual lawyers like me, that will stand up for subjects of the realm and present a constitutional case to the High Court. And even when we do, the High Court will not listen to us because we ain't got a silly wig on and a gown, right? When it's all supposed to be representing tradition, right? The monopoly that has taken control is easy to indoctrinate. And that's exactly what's happened. But the beauty of what I've just shown you is, and I'm not just saying this, anyone who's watched me for a very long time, certainly in excess of 10 years, will tell you that all I've ever done is gone on about the Fabian Society being Marxists and the slow march through the institutions. I have kept on about who and what they are. This goes well back to the 1800s, right? And it went back in my opinion, to 1812 if you really want to understand what's gone on. And there's other stuff which I'm not going to cover again tonight, but I will cover it briefly tomorrow night. And I'm doing a shared show with someone tomorrow called, I'm sure his name is Paul English. And we'll be doing that, and I'll show you a part of that tomorrow. That's going to be tomorrow evening. So we're going to be having a conversation about all things England and unpicking the Britishness, because this guy absolutely believes in England. But getting back to this, if anyone didn't understand, now the only person in the US in senior positions I've heard talk about the Fabian Society is Eric Trump, right? So, for example, Eric Trump is, I would consider, a very knowledgeable, not an expert, but very knowledgeable. And there is a book out there, I think it's called The Highway to the USA, the Fabian Highway to the USA. And it's all about the Fabian Society, the International Fabian Society, and how they infiltrated the United States of America. And the person that was talking about that was a guy called Eric Trump. That is Donald Trump's son, right? So it is fantastic that I'm now seeing someone. It gives me, what's the word I'm looking for? It inspires me to keep going, because I know that people, without people talking about this, and I'm not the only one, but I have continued pushing this and pushing this and pushing this. You need to understand how these people are doing this, right? And now on one of the most watched podcasts in the world on YouTube and every other platform, Rupert Lowe is telling everyone how bad the Fabian Society are, and the fact that the whole of the cabinet, front bench, all Fabians, that in other words, they're all Marxists, and they all seek to destroy England, right? It's England they hate, not Britain, right? That's why you have a Fabian Society in Scotland, a Fabian Society in Wales, a Fabian Society in Ireland, a Fabian Society in New Zealand, a Fabian Society in Australia, a Fabian Society in South Africa, and the only place that is missing from their website is England. They hate England, and they hate common law, and they hate the individualists, right? Which is what the common law protects, the individual rights of the person or the subject of the realm of England, right? That is why you don't see England mentioned anywhere. In fact, what they've already said is we want to regionalise England, and we never will allow England to be an independent nation again. And I can get into this tomorrow night probably, but if you want me to cover it briefly, when this situation happened with William Patterson, who is this Scottish guy that created, unfortunately, the Bank of England. He was Scottish. He created that. And then after a year, he went back up to Scotland and he created the Scottish Company under the 1695 Act of Parliament, and he ruined Scotland, absolutely ruined Scotland. And then the Scots proceeded to blame the English. The English, and bear in mind the exchange rate at that time in 1695 was 12 Scottish pounds to one English pound. In other words, the English pound was very strong. There were different mechanisms in place. There were tariffs in place. There were various things. And Scotland's total wealth in Scottish money, in terms of liquidity, was £800,000, right? And that's Scottish pounds. So divide that by 12 and you'll get the figure, right? The whole of what they was worth. And what they did was they squandered their wealth on trying to colonize Panama, right? And in doing so, they not only lost 2,000 men, but they also bankrupted Scotland and then proceeded to blame England, right, for that. And England as part of the Acts of Union, paid Scotland 398,000 English pounds, right? So well in excess of what the country was worth. And they said it was part of compensation because they was bringing it into the English system, etc. It was the worst thing they could have done. It was the biggest bailout potentially in history because it was in effect a corporation that had caused it and a corporation that had bankrupted the nation. And we have been paying for it ever since. And the only real way of solving that problem, as these books in front of me tell you, our ancestors tell us, is to go back to prior, which wasn't my original intention. They said you need to go back to prior to 1603, where it's completely separate. And then any mistakes that they make as a socialist nation, of a business nature, or any, if you haven't got proper intelligent business people running Scotland, and it goes pear-shaped as a socialist nation, it's down to the people of Scotland. They should have solved that problem a long time ago, and they didn't. And they're dragging England. They're killing England at the same time. So I just want everyone to understand that. All right, and there will be various elements of what these people will say and not say. I'm not really interested. I like the Scots, so I ain't got a problem with them, but really they need to own up to their own problems. Right, so I'm going to take you to another part of this, which I'll stopped to 35. I think I've put it at.
Well, I think liberty is very fragile, isn't it? Ultimately, if you don't protect liberty, you lose it.
Right.
It was Margaret Thatcher who was very strong on this.
And you have to have laws.
You have to have laws,
liberty.
but what you also have to have is everyone should be equal under the law.
Yes.
And to your point, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Britain used to be a very tolerant society. So, for instance, Europe was very anti-Semitic. Britain was never anti-Semitic. We used to welcome a lot of...
Right, let me stop it there. England, as a nation, expelled the Jews, and a lot of them Jews didn't just go back to Europe. A lot of them went to Scotland as a separate nation, and we expelled them. This is where you need an honest legal historian to tell the truth. There were 3,000 Jews in the late 1200s in this country, and 600 of them, 20%, were rounded up for counterfeiting our currency and debasing our coinage. They were very clever in what they was doing. They was debasing and clipping the coins, and then they was smelting it down and making sheets of gold, then getting a sheet of tin. They was gold plating the tin and then using their jewelry skills to engrave presses, and they were printing out our gold coins. They was taking them to Europe, trading them, and then Europe stopped trading with us because they realised our currency was fake, right? And it caused a massive issue in England. So the king at the time sent out the knights of the shires and said, I want you to round up anyone that the communities are telling you of doing this. So out of the 3,000 Jews, 600 were rounded up and brought to London, and there were trials, literal trials, where they were showing the evidence. 300 were found not guilty, right? Mainly because of a fire that burnt all the evidence, but we won't go into that side of it. But even their targeting methods was that group of people. The point I'm trying, and by the way, these records still exist in purest form, right? 300 were hanged for counterfeiting the coinage, right? So to say we've never been, and that isn't being, and I agree with him, that is not being anti-Semitic. That is the English being anti-organised crime, right? So I just want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not disagreeing with him to say that we're not, because I don't think we are anti-Semitic. We are anti-organised crime. It doesn't matter who the organised criminals are or what their religion is, right?
were Jews and Protestants from Europe who were being persecuted.
Right. So he now talks about the Protestants. So again, in 1708, they created a law where they allowed into this country mainly French Protestants who were being persecuted in Europe. And by, I think it was 1711, hang on a minute, 1711 they started it, 1713, 1714 they had to abolish it because so many come in, it was changing the structure and the culture, and this is Protestant white people in England. So they abolished it, right? They abolished the law that allowed the Protestants in, unregulated, just flood them in because they're being persecuted. And they reversed it. They took their citizenship away and they sent most of them back, right? And prior to that, there was a known person called Sir John Knight, who made a speech in 1690, I believe it was, to the House of Commons, where he sounded very much like Rupert Lowe. And he explained, because they tried to do it then, and he said, no, if you do this, you will destroy the liberties of England. England, he was talking about. Remember that, right? And some years later, they passed this act. They realised it was a problem, and it was Queen Anne that stepped in and abolished it when asked. They abolished that Act of Parliament and they reversed it, because the only way you can reverse stare decisis, in other words, laws, that the law that is adjudged and made by a High Court and the House of Lords, is if you abolish what its original authority, right? And it must be abolished, not repealed. Because if you don't abolish it, the stare decisis remains, right? And it's really important that people understand that. So again, just to make sure, these are just little clips. I'm only doing small. I think it's a fantastic interview. I'm not having a pop at him. Like I've said, I'm even more with him with some of the things that he's coming out with.
Particularly in France with the Protestants. So we were a very tolerant society, but the people who came integrated and they contributed. And that is the essence, I think, of sensible immigration.
Well, that's the point. They didn't, right? One with the Jews that happened then in the late 1200s, and secondly with those Protestants, they caused too many problems. They didn't integrate. They was creating their own communities. They were sending money back to France, and in the end they said, you're going to have to stop this, right? Reverse what we've done, and that's what they did. Just to make sure, I'm not having a pop at Rupert Lowe. I'm saying that he doesn't understand the legal history of what went on, right? He's coming out with this indoctrinated version, right? And again, I'm not having a pop at him. I'm just saying, right? I don't expect him to know what I know or what the secret people on Twitter knows, right? Because we're sitting there reading the original books and we're reading the original vertebrin speeches by these people. We're reading the archives to say what, because England has got this natural ability to write things down and keep it forever, so we know what it is. Is everyone happy with what I just said?
So it should be limited, targeted, and it should be only people who accept your religion and your culture and your laws.
But what do you do, though, if someone comes over here and then they're not violating laws? They're not violating any laws. They achieve citizenship, but then they start bringing over more and more people and then start instituting Sharia law. What do you do? Do you deport them all? Like, how do you, like this idea of having all these people?
Yeah, you do that. Joe, you got it bang on some, right? Deport a lot of them. But here's the kicker. He talks about the Constitution in a couple of minutes, which I'll get to. This is Rupert Lowe talks about the Constitution and America's shared Constitution. But the Bill of Rights actually forbids Sharia law. It forbids Jewish law, forbids Sikh law, right? And the reason it does, it forbids their legal court system, right? The English Bill of Rights does that. But Rupert Lowe has never mentioned that. That's been one of my beefs against Tommy Robinson. And why won't Tommy Robinson mention it? Because it also forbids Jewish cults, right? Does everyone understand what I'm saying? Do you want me to take you to the point in the English Bill of Rights that it says it?
People recognizing how many people got in illegally, deporting them, mass deportations, deporting criminals. It all sounds great until you talk about actually implementing it. Like, how do you do that? How are you doing that? Are you going to knock on people's doors and pull them out of their homes and ship them back to where they came from? Like,
Well,
how do you do that?
I think the first thing you do is you stop them coming across.
Okay, well,
the
how
channel.
many?
They shouldn't be coming anywhere
what's
under
the
international
estimate?
law because they're traveling across safe countries, so they shouldn't be coming.
What's the estimate of the amount of illegal immigration that you have in Britain?
It's almost impossible to say how many people are living there illegally or living with us illegally. But in our paper, I mean, we think it's sort of 1.8 to 2 million people probably. That's our estimate. But people arriving, we know how many are arriving. There's a lot arriving every day, particularly when the
I'm going on to the next bit, which is 43. So he talks about a number of things. Anyone that should be able to go and watch this, by the way. It is open it's an open platform. Let me see if I can put it on there.
If they rape a white girl, that doesn't count in their view of life as adultery. So they are effectively taught that a girl who doesn't dress as they would dress is meat to be abused, and they have these extraordinary sort of cultural views that are completely incompatible, in my view, with a society like ours, where we are a matriarchal society which respects women. I think we have grown to respect.
Right. So just to make sure everyone's aware of this again, the very first Statute of Westminster converted common law that was already law into positive law for everyone in the country to understand. And the first Statute of Westminster in 1275 made it a hanging offence to rape a woman. Right, just to make sure. So in 1275, the first Statute of Westminster in England, it's not British, it's English, right? The definition is important.
Women, obviously, they've now got an omnipotent position within our society. Certainly in the UK, I'm sure it's true here too, and quite right. They play a part in our society. They're a very, very important part of everything. But again, under the Islamic code, I think that the Muslims are frightened of female sexuality. It's all there, and as you know, you get FGM, female genital mutilation. So
right, so female genital mutilation, right, was the British changing our laws in a positive way for Muslims, right? Why do I say that? Because it's a 10-year maximum sentence. And by the way, they made the evidence gathering for it really difficult. And the maximum sentence was 10 years. The English, under, what was the law? Offences Against the People's Act, 1861, I believe it was, Section 18, which means with intent, right? So GBH, grievous bodily harm with intent, Section 18. Really important to understand Section 18. Section 18 carries a life sentence. And then part of that legal process was what's known as aggravating factors. So does religion aggravate it? In this case, yeah. Does sexuality aggravate it? In this case, yes, right? Does the age of the person aggravate it? In this case, yes, right? So you got 3 aggravating factors, which means that person's going to get lifed off, right? A life sentence under English law, the common law, and the Offences Against the Person Act, 1861, Section 18, with aggravating factors. So what did they do, right? The British Parliament, they lowered the sentences and made the evidence gathering more difficult so no one actually gets prosecuted for it, right? Did everyone understand what I just said? Did I make that simple enough? because sometimes talking about law, you can make things quite complex, and I don't mean to do that at all. My job is to simplify a complex subject, right? But so again, I'm not having a go at Rupert Lowe. I'm just saying this is where it is my opinion, right? My strong opinion that he needs working class people that are constitutionalists that understand the law, that can explain this in a different way to the people that he's got around him that are part of a monopoly. Because any of them people part of a monopoly, right, are of a lower standard. I'm just saying it. I'm telling it as it is.
These cultures, I think, Joe, and to your point, are just incompatible unless you have a very strong government which basically protects its electorate from any subversive behavior which is not compatible with our values.
You keep using the term meat. Is that how they actually refer to it as?
That's
How-
how
what
they,
do- what do
that's
they
how
s-
they consider it. Yeah.
What do they say? Like how are
Well,
they?
it's in our report that there was actually I think it was
Is it a translation
I
of?
think Thomas Jefferson, actually, it's in our report, asked the Barbary pirates about the way in which they treated their slaves and their women. That was particularly slaves. They just also slavery is accepted within Islamic countries. So I think they have their own code.
And don't forget, it was the English that stopped slavery. Granville Sharp, in particular, but it goes back over a century before that, with a number of cases that, in the end, it became overwhelming when Granville Sharp got hold of a barrister and said, "I want you to present this to the court." And this in particular, what I'm talking about is Stuart versus Somerset, 1772. Right, and it was the English. And by the way, it's been acknowledged even on YouTube by Sir Stephen Sedley, who's an appeal court judge, giving a lecture, and he said it was whilst the white working class English had nothing to do with slavery whatsoever. Right, in other words, they didn't own any slaves, they didn't like slavery. In fact, we was helping the slaves when they got here. Right. He said it was us, the white working class, that paid back the loan to the Rothschilds, right? And it only finished in 2015. And yet we're the ones being attacked.
They have their own terms of reference. And there is a quote in there, I'd have to look at the report to give it to you, but where one of them does liken white girls not dressing as Muslim girls dress, and he does liken it to meat.
Jesus.
And you know, that is an analogy he used. So I mean, yeah, I think that's what they think.
There's a lot more to this. Let me go on to 53. 53, 53, 53, 53. 52, 50.
And
it's crazy.
all the misallocation of taxpayer funds all over the world. A lot of it to England. Some of it came to woke causes in England.
Mm-hmm.
So look, whoever the architects of this are, whether it's the World Economic Forum, whoever they are, whether it's the Bilderbergers, whether it's the Council on Foreign Relations, whether it's whatever malign influence is trying to do this, we have to collectively try and reverse it. So I'm saying to people, if you want, I will do my damnedest to reverse it. You know, I've run multiple businesses. I was in the City of London for 20 years, so I know about finance, and I will commit to doing whatever I can to reverse this for the British people. But they've got to buy into it, Joe. They've got to buy into it.
Are there people that are in denial that this is happening, that this rape gang problem is real?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Labour.
And what do they say?
Well, Labour just tries to look the other way.
But when confronted by the numbers, what is their response?
Well, we've been demanding a statutory inquiry, and in the end, we crowdfunded this.
Right. What is their response to that?
Well, their response to this has been pretty muted, to be frank. I mean, the BBC haven't covered it at all.
Really?
A national monopolistic broadcaster.
Again, monopolies coming in here again, yeah?
Paid for by a compulsory fee, have not covered this as a matter of public interest, nor of Sky, nor properly of the Daily Telegraph. GB News have covered a tiny. Patrick Christie's covered one evening of it. Now, this is a massive national scandal that deserves a complete and utter airing.
How does the BBC justify not discussing this?
Well, the BBC is part of our problem, Joe. So to your point about, the Democrats, the BBC is a deeply malign organization. So it was set up to inform, educate, and entertain. And it was set up by a man called Reith. And Reith was a highly principled man. And I think at the time it was set up in the 1920s, it probably did have a role. But in the digital age, where most of the young people no longer watch their news on the BBC,
which is why the government are stepping in this country and now making sure that the BBC are going to be promoted first on YouTube, etc. That will not happen on Rumble, right? But I need your assistance to come over to Rumble and push our channel up in the ratings.
You see, they get their news from whatever their favorite news channel is, whether it's Breitbart, whoever they go and get it from, they get it from somewhere else. But if you want to watch sport, or you want to,
Right, let me go to the next one, 58. Someone's probably going to have to tell me where he talks about the Constitution again.
And their news bulletins were designed, as I say, to be impartial completely. And being a public sector broadcaster, their job was to cover matters like this and create debate. But as we know, monopolies go bad. I mean, monopolies, in my view, are generally a bad thing, particularly in the digital age where, and thanks to Elon Musk and what he did with X, I think he has released free speech. I think he has returned some sort of semblance of people's ability to be able to force debate without being bullied by a monopoly like the BBC. Right. So if I ever get near power, I will responsibly defund the BBC as one of the first things I do. I think the BBC is dripping poison into the veins of Britain every day.
What other examples of what the BBC is doing do you think is dripping poison?
Well, I think a lot of their coverage is not objective. It's woke. I mean, they're into all this DEI. They're into obviously the LGBTQ plus. They're into all of the things which I think, as we said earlier, probably came from this.
103. Let me go to that one.
That. And the only thing that makes sense is they've been indoctrinated through universities to think this way, because nowhere in the real world do you think that equality of out.
Now, when I was talking about indoctrination, right? Restore started firing back at me, saying, you've got to stop talking about this indoctrination. That's the key element to this.
Outcome ever makes any sense, because everybody realizes somewhere along the line, when you get your first job, when you're a kid, when you're going through school, when you're playing sports, there's not a quality of effort. There's never a quality of effort. And there's always some people that want to put in more effort, and they're putting more thought and more focus, and they get further. And, they're fucking over all these other people.
Just to make sure, this is not me blowing my own trumpet. So me talking about us, the normal everyday people, me talking about the English Constitution and England and being English, right? People have started noticing that people have started talking about England, the English Constitution, and the fact that we do have a constitution and there is this indigenous population of English, right? Now, the English reject any form of socialism or authoritarian government. That means we reject fascism. We reject communism. And again, in these books that I've got to my left here and behind me, and this is not a green screen, right? These are real books. All of these books here are real. And I do read them, right? And it's the effort that you put in to promote that to people. And then even if it's out, I mean, we're getting a lot of younger people watching now who are saying, wow, they never taught me this, right? And all of a sudden it's coming about that people are realizing that in England is under attack.
Are you sure that's everything? because it seems like it's not. And it seems like as soon as you remove any incentive to succeed, then you don't have any of the amazing stuff that you have around you all the time. The reason why you have beautiful televisions and Starlink and all that, it's capitalism. It's that you have to incentivize people to create these things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the only way to do it is to fuck other people over. That's not correct. It can be done correctly. It can be done humanely. It can be done wisely. You could vote with your dollars. You could, boycott companies that do things that you don't think are ethical.
Just to make sure I'm clear on this, right? So Christian capitalism, and there is such a thing, is the common law building of a company. The respect, most people don't realise that we have pushed in England for greater respect for working people in this country, right? Our constitution is far better, far greater. Our laws, the Factories Act, for example, was far more implemented anywhere in the world. It come from here, it come from this country.
There's all sorts of wonderful ways that capitalism could be used, and you can sort of influence things in the right direction. But to throw it all out and say we've got to go to socialism, like, oh boy, I can't believe people are buying that. That to me is one of the real problems with not allowing conservative voices in universities. And that these universities, especially in the United States, are a lot of, especially like in sociology, psychology, and the overwhelmingly liberal. Like, surely there's got to be some historians out there that are conservative.
That one clip, people need to clip that and say, speak to Graham Moore, right? An English constitutionist, a legal historian that is self-educated, hasn't touched the university, doesn't want to be near university, and these people haven't stopped crushing him because he's telling people the truth of our legal history, our constitution, our common law rights. Clip that segment and send it to him, right? And this segment, and say, why don't you speak to Graham Moore, right? And you can send it to Rupert as well and his whole team.
And they would have a different perspective. And it might be good to have diversity of opinion, as well as diversity of national origin, as well as diversity of gender, as well as.
So why don't you get diversity of opinion in a court of law in the High Court, right? Well, when you did, we won our cases. And then they swapped the last two judges out because they knew they was losing. And they had to put two crooked judges in place to win the case. Against who? A paralegal, a legal historian that loves the England and the English law and the Constitution. Someone who is so well read on English law and the Constitution that they had to put two crooked judges in place to combat it. And I am not talking nonsense. I am not bitter about it. It's just I knew that was going to happen. I told people that. But there were 65 people sitting in the gallery in that court in Chester. And when I asked them outside, you're the jury, you're the audience, you is the people sitting in there, you tell me what you think. And they all said, there's no doubt in our mind whatsoever, they should order an individual ballot recount, right? There you go. And they got away with a fraud. And bearing in mind, right, we're one of the only countries in the world that after 1 year and a day, all the ballots are burnt, right? So the evidence of their fraud is removed, and any evidence and it all coming out in the future is gone, right? That's another reason why you should bring an election petition. Let me have a look and see who's here. Right, any questions from the audience so far? I have no doubt there's other parts to this. I'm going to go back and check and see if anyone's put up near the beginning with the first 26 minutes, but don't know exactly. Yeah, he mentions the Constitution. He mentions the Bill of Rights, etc. And a lot of people have contacted me and said he must be listening. He's understanding. He does, but he doesn't get it, and he needs to understand it from a perspective of the subject of the realm, not someone who's been indoctrinated by the state in a university. Right? There's two angles to a constitution: the way the state governs and the way the subjects are seeing how so in other words, you need the other side of it put, and we're not getting that. There's a few people saying that to me, that Rupert Lowe's definitely watching. I don't know whether he is or he isn't. We need more and more people to push forward and grab elements of this and push it forward and say to him, listen, you really do need another group of people advising you. I'm not suggesting you sack your current advisors, but you need to listen to both sides. You need to hear it from our perspective and someone who's actually read the law. Andy, he sure does. He talks it as well. I can't listen to him for long. Is 3 years long enough to save up for a tank just for when you get our right to bear arms back? You can go and buy tanks even today, believe it or not. I've just had a drink of that. So let's have a look and see. What we're probably going to do now is come back off of that for a second. I haven't watched the rest of it, but what I do want to say, my beloved isn't here. She's back in London, and I'm terribly missing her because she normally sits there and makes me a coffee as well. Not that I'm missing the coffee side of it. I'll probably sleep well tonight. Will not. FB censoring takes place via AI. Oh, right, okay. I hope Rupert Lowe will take us on board and at least talk to DTD. I'm just making sure everyone's aware of this. The only way he'll ever do that is if you contact him, right? Not just, and I don't mean this disrespectively, right? I've said to you 1,000 times, when 90 plus of you turn up in the Royal Courts of Justice and the judges can see and say, I'll tell you what, let's open up another court, right? In the Royal Courts of Justice, an appeal hearing, right? If you can move the appeal court justices to open up a secondary court just so you can see and hear what's going on, it is you that do this. It's not just me, right? I'm only a mouthpiece. But the more you push this forward and you push this out and you send the emails and you write letters, like you write physical letters to me, ask Rupert Lowe, speak to Graham Moore, right? And eventually someone in his team will listen and say, maybe you do need to speak to him, right? Did Rupert see Trump in the US? No, but what I do know is he's in that video. He mentions that he saw, as far as I know, he saw Elon Musk on Sunday in Texas, and then some other people have put some stuff, probably Elon as well, where he's had some meetings in Washington DC with the administration. Putting over to them that they do want to come out of this and they need assistance. And I'm hoping that's it. But so getting back to the other situation that we've got currently in this situation, and I do want to show people this because I think it's important that people understand. Paul, let's see if I can find Paul Weston. He coming out with saying today, any other than restore winning 20 means far left Islamic alliance. I absolutely agree that if Restore Britain don't win the next general election, England's gone. Right. What we need to do is push more. So let me just make sure I'll bring this up because I think it's important. I suspect. I'm trying to find where he put this. It was a very interesting. Paul Weston put it out. I'm trying to find it. Oh, it wouldn't be. Where would it be? You probably won't be allowed to fund the election. It's an ideal, correct 4 points. Farage is falling out of favour of much reform high command. There can only be one patriotic party. He actually put out a different alternative today to the views of what's going on, and I actually thought it was quite. Let's see if it was a big one. Oh, my neck keeps clicking. Let's have a look. There's a global agenda. Good. Let's have a look. In short, neck. I'm going to have to turn and look at the screen. When was that? No, it would have been yesterday or the day before that he put it out. But he basically put out a reasoning that he believes, and I wish I could find it. Someone out there must have it. I actually did. Let me see if I can find it somewhere else. Let me have a look. I do want to show you this because I think it's important. And I thought it was interesting. Trump. There was something else I put out there today. Actually, Dawn, amazing. Rupert Lowe. Eric. No, the scientist. Andy. Oh, my neck is clicking. Let's see if I can find him. I can't find it. It's really annoying. I actually retweeted it today. But basically, what Paul had said, Paul Weston, was, and I think he's potentially correct. It's very interesting what he put out. He basically said that he believes, or he believes what could be happening, right, is that the reform hierarchy or the power people within that group have realised that Farage is toxic, right? And he's in effect not going to be doing what the people want, and it's going to be dangerous. And there's other things, and they don't want him there. So they've now started, in effect, to start briefing against Farage from within reform, right? And there can't be a merger between reform and restore, which actually means, if you want to call it this, a reverse takeover, a bit like Advance UK, right? Because Rupert Lowe said, I'm not compromising with anyone. You're doing it my way or the highway, right? And I think the only way that the two things can come together is if Zia goes, if Farage goes. In my opinion, there'd be a number of other people going as well, right? And they've drawn in some of these Tories, and they'll be toxic and pushed to one side. And the whole machine that's been built will then come across to restore, but the machinery of the political party, right, is potentially what could happen. I believe Paul could be right. But none of that will happen all of the time. Nigel Farage and Zia are there. I think they're going to be jettisoned, right? And that's what Paul Western come out with today. I actually sent him a message and said, I think that's a very, and he's the only person he stuck his neck out and said it. I think that's a very interesting analogy of what he thinks could be happening in the background. No, but what would you? So I've just seen someone said I don't trust reform. Zia Yusuf. No, so anyone who was party to attacking Rupert Lowe in that way would be gone. And one of the things that I actually said to Paul Weston today was, if people think hostile corporate takeovers are more vicious than anything you've ever seen in politics. Don't forget corporations and the money involved and what's potentially involved for any corporation, even if it's fighting off a hostile takeover. And I've no doubt that Rupert Lowe has been involved in some way in the city in these takeover bids in the past, right? They can be very, 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 very vicious, right? And anyone who's ever been involved with a corporation, and I have in the past, I worked for a corporation. Some people don't get on with working with corporations. I think it was far too political, right? There's more politics in corporations. Real politics and power plays in corporations, especially multinational conglomerates, than anything else you've ever seen. Right, and I can tell you now, in my opinion, it is far more vicious. Far more vicious. So if Rupert, if someone like Farage or even Zia or any of the other ones think they're gonna outsmart the strategic thinking of Rupert Lowe, they're probably not. From a standpoint of being political. So getting back to this situation that we've got in Clacton, I think Clacton's, whilst I see it with some amusement and some not, someone else has put out, I think it was Andrew Whiston, he put out that he believed there's a potential that Nigel Farage has already seen an embargoed copy of something, right, from the Standards Committee. So not necessarily the full report and its conclusions, but certainly some of the evidence it's seen. Maybe they've put things, or they've put or asked for his comments on certain things, and he's coming back and saying, like, if they know about that, I better go. Right? There's something more to this. And then I see something else today by someone else. I can't think who said it, but they basically said, if you haven't done anything wrong, the report doesn't matter. If you have done something wrong, there's going to be a by-election either way. So you must have thought you've done something wrong to create the by-election in the first place, for you to do it, to initiate it. Because no politician would put his job at risk, literally, which is what he's done. Not that I'd call it a job, because he's actually working for himself. In my opinion, he's not doing anything. I can't see. Can any people in Jaywick, in Essex, anyone felt any benefit yet from Nigel Farage? I didn't think so. One of the poorest areas of the whole of Europe. Why is it poor people vote for these people? And it would be even worse to vote for Labour. Nigel Farage is a very crafty individual, very hard to trust. I wouldn't trust him at all. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Jason, Rebecca, and Mr. and Mrs. English. Tidy up England, vote bin face. So, yeah, this bin face thing, I'm seeing other people saying that they're potentially going to stand. I think Rupert Lowe and Restore, even though it would annoy some of the members because political parties should stand, right? But strategically, I think they're probably right. And when we try and operate as strategically as possible, one, because we ain't got the money, and we've got nowhere near the money that Rupert and Restore's got. But we're more about the Constitution, and we'll push if we think there's a valid situation to aggravate the regime. And I think it was Rupert today that called them the regime. They said they wouldn't like being called the regime, but that's what they are, a regime. And again, I agree with that entirely. But just to make sure everyone is aware of this, Mr. Binface, who is evidently a raving lefty, could that be a big slap in the face if people actually went and voted for him and he was the only candidate? And again, if no one else stands, and I do mean no one, so just Nigel Farage himself, it doesn't even have to go to an election. A returning officer just says it's uncontested, and make him back into the MP. Just to let everyone know. Simon Lacey back to normal now. Let's have a look. The mayor's job in Manchester has gone quiet. Yeah, I wonder what's going on up there. Rebecca Hicks, English Constitution Party. I think the link as follows. Peterson. All right, let's have a look. Rebecca, let's have a look. Let's see if I can find that one. I'm not sure if I can get that. How can I get to that off from here? Someone will have to try and. I can't get to that. Someone will need to put it into the thing for me. Let's have a look. Is that it? Yeah, that is it. This was the Paul Weston. Well done, whoever found that. Let me take that off the thing a sec. Gesundheit. Let's see if I can find this. Let's bring it up on the screen. So, Paul Weston. I suspect there is more to Nigel Farage standing down than meets the eye. Several senior Reform chaps have lost faith in him. They are serious people who understand a 2029 election with Reform and Restore both competing could allow a hard left Islamic Alliance party to win. That's what we don't want. My take on this is that Reform and Restore would like to merge, which is obviously impossible with Farage heading up Reform. So Reform High Command is briefing against Farage and want him out for the sake of the country. In short, they are siding with Rupert Lowe. And then he's put good, right? And then I've put a reply to that, which is Farage has gone all in for a reason. He's not bothered about the media circus. It's about him and his leadership. It is also telling that Rupert is gaining support in the USA whilst Farage is losing it. And he is losing support in the USA, right? Almost as if Trump knows something about who has financed Farage and, more importantly, why, right? Now, bearing in mind, President Trump has already got some disagreements going on with the EU and NATO, and more importantly, he has already said and stated categorically that the European Union was set up to compete with and attack the United States of America. Right? You could be right. You need the right leadership, the right plan, the right people to execute the plan. The right business plan, in effect, needs real business leaders, not clueless politicians. And this takes me back to what I said earlier about the viciousness of a corporate takeover. One thing that Nigel Farage has got no experience in whatsoever is the viciousness of a corporate takeover and the politics that goes on in corporations that is far more vicious than anyone. But it doesn't directly affect the electorate, although some of these corporations, and I won't mention them, but even if you go back and look at history, for example, the East India Company, it got so big as a private company. In the end, it threatened the monarch, and the monarch had to nationalise it, right? Because it was so big as an armed company, somewhere in the region of 3 to 400,000 armed men, right? And it was mainly men, and then you had everything else that it was feeding in the background. It wasn't a Mickey Mouse thing, so it was quite massive. Rope is a good value for UK. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's have a look. Nigel Farage, who's the best buds with Miranda Blair. It doesn't surprise me. Did everyone see that and read that on the screen, by the way? That's the one I was talking about. So if anyone wants that, I will put the link in our chat as we speak. Right. And again, if anyone wants to clip some of the things that we're doing tonight and send it to Rupert Lowe, please feel free to do so. Any other questions? Anyone got anything they want to say? I'm going to try and stay away from any of the clickbait bullshit to do with Clacton. Not that I disrespect anyone in Clacton or the electorate in Clacton or the people of Clacton or any of that, right? I certainly don't, right? I know quite a few people there. I don't want to get involved with Farage's silly games. I'm about England, so full stop. And I think that should be. And they will obviously come for me at some stage. Is there a limit on how many traitors England can hang in one day? No, there's not, is the answer. If that was a serious question, no, there's not. Maybe we should return to what Clacton will be a shit show. It is a shit show. Is there any plans to field an AC can in Clacton? No. Again, I do think it's the right decision of Restore not to stand a candidate. I don't get this secondary election bit. I just don't get it. I think people are saying that they don't believe that what they're saying is they think that if Nigel Farage puffs everyone out, and they come out and vote for him in Clacton now, that if it goes through the system and then they have to say now you have to create this. I don't know, but there could be a second election. If there is, would I stand in it, or would one of us stand in it? We'd have to see and look at who the candidate is, whether they're going to talk about England, the English Constitution, whether they're more aligned with England and bringing back and protecting England and our constitutional common law rights, which it currently appears that there's not enough of those people in Restore. Multiverse 82, totally Rebecca. But getting back to the other side of it, if you look at what Scotland did, and by the way, this Scot, and let me just see if I can show you what I sent out earlier on. Might be an idea to show that out. I sent something out earlier on. And people are sending that out. Well done. But I was trying to explain to people what happened. Let's see if I can find anything on there. I was trying to explain to people what was going on. Was that the one? Oh, that's the one I was looking for earlier. If you've not broken the rules, then a by-election is unnecessary. If you have broken the rules, then a by-election is almost inevitable. So I just thought it was really well put what the guy had said there. This is the one that I sent out earlier on. Let me stop that for a second, and I'll just show you this again, because I think it's an important one. Again, the more people that are helping share this and put it out there, the better, right? I'll put this out. Let me put that on there, right? Trump on England, right? But before we get to that, who bankrupted Scotland? The Scots, with the Scottish Act of Parliament, the Scotland Company, at 1695. Who created the Bank of England in 1695? The same Scot called William Paterson, right? He was a walking disaster. He helped create the mess we are now in and then blame the English, right? And then I just play this. Let me see if I can play it.
But which alliance will be more important, with the EU or with Britain?
Both. I don't want to say which. Look, I think we have been with, I guess, would start off by saying England, right? You know, I asked Boris, where's England? What's happening with England? They don't use it too much anymore. We talked about it. It was very interesting.
Right. So all I'm doing is just showing you that. Now, what I did, let's see if I can get back to this. What I also did was asked. So what I just said in that, asked AI. I asked AI if it was true. So I asked Grok, right? So on the statement that I had made, the post asserts Scots via the Company of Scotland 1695 and William Paterson created the Bank of England in 1695 and bankrupted Scotland through the Darien scheme while blaming the English. Paterson, a Scot, co-founded the Bank of England in 1694 and was the chief promoter of the company of Scotland's Darien colony, whose failure consumed roughly 1/5 of Scotland's capital and hastened the 1707 union. The video is an edited 2019 G7 clip of Trump at a Biarritz press conference with Boris Johnson, where he mentions England. The overlays emphasise English symbols such as the underlying footage is authentic. Right? So all of that there. And then you've got what I've said there, and Grok has basically said, yeah, it's true, right? And again, most of it is coming from these books. All of the playing politics is the problem already. Yeah, Jacob. Trump is great. He lays it down truthful. You're getting more of the truth from him than you are from most other people. So there it is. Right, I'm going to say good night. God bless. It's coming up to 9:15. Don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. I will say good night to everyone and a special good night to Janet in London tonight and to her mum. All right. So it's her birthday. So I am going to sing happy birthday. All right. So are you ready? We should all sing, and don't forget to put up on the screen all the English flags for Janet's mum. Are we ready? Let's have a look. Let's see if I can put it up there, right? So this is for Janet's one. We want to see loads of English flags. Are you ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Junie. Happy birthday to you. There you go. All right, so that's Janet's mum. It's her birthday today, and Janet is up there wishing her happy birthday with the rest of the family. That's it, people. Thank you very much, and thanks for everyone sticking up the English flags for Junie. I will see you all again tomorrow night, where we're having a double show with someone else who's going to come on, and we're going to be promoting it on two angles. That's it. Don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. And I will see you all tomorrow evening. Good night and God bless.